Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Lepodcast. This is episode 44. I'm your co-host, Saini Take, alongside the infamous ZZ Huncho and Darth Hoopology for those who are watching on YouTube. If you're on Spotify, it's just Hoopology with a Darth Vader mask. Now, you might be wondering why. Why, if you're a regular listener, why is Saini doing the intro? Why isn't Hoop? Why can't I hear his magnificent, his glorious voice at the beginning of this Lepodcast episode? Well, we have a little bit of a different episode for you guys today. This episode will be fully based on the arguably greatest regular season performer of the 2010s, James Harden. And more importantly, is James Harden a historic playoff choker? I, Saini Take, will be the moderator for this episode. And ZZ Huncho and Hoopology will be going back and forth debating, is James Harden as big of a playoff choker as the media portrays him to be? Nobody make any hand gestures. Don't give away what side you're on. I'm looking at you, Hoop. I'm gonna cut this intro short. I want to get straight into the episode. You guys get the rules. You guys know what's happening. Hoop wants to do his little monologue at the beginning, so we're going to let Hoop talk for a bit, and then we're going to go straight into it, and we're going to start with ZZ's side. We're going to figure out who's on what side, and it's going to be a heated episode, so you're in for a good one.
Yeah, well, I'm wearing my Darth Vader mask right now. My sound might be a little distorted for those on Spotify. I'm going to take it off, don't worry, it's really sweaty. But as someone who is defending the undefendable, I feel like I'm the villain in this scenario, except instead of my weapon being a freezing chamber where I put Han Solo into a rock, I put ZZ Huncho in the crock pot and cook up. That is my weapon of choice, the crock pot. So by the end of this episode, I'll have this mask back on, and Saini will crown me the winner. That was a poor monologue, but I'm too focused on this debate. I gotta take this thing off, man.
If I'm putting my money on someone, it's Z. Because look at him. He's straight face. He's ready. He don't need no monologue. He's ready to cook.
I'm not yelling.
He's ready to cook. Oh, we need some yelling. You better hope. I'm going to instigate some yelling.
Hoop's got it, but I'm
going to instigate some yelling. As the moderator, I am also the instigator. Just remember that. And
I
didn't do my research for this.
I defend Julius Randle, who's already undefendable, so I have some prowess in this type of debate. But this will truly prove my skills, as this is really tough. But I got it. Don't worry.
Interesting.
I am
Slow
also
cooking in the
the instigator.
Slow cooking in the crock pot.
I will also be the instigator alongside the moderator, meaning I will make sure to push everybody's buttons. I've also done my research on this topic. I'm not going to give my opinion on it until the end. I'm going to let these two go at it. I'm going to act as if I have no idea who James Harden is in the playoffs. And I need you guys to convince me. But Z, we're going to start with you, of course, the infamous. And let's get this debate rolling. Let them know what side you're on, and let's start kicking off, man. Bring up your first point.
Ladies and gentlemen, as Saini addressed in the opening intro, James Harden is one of, if not the greatest, regular season performers of all time, especially of our generation, as we've seen a lot of great things from James Harden. 60-point triple-doubles, 36-point per game season averages. 50-point performances in 4-game to 5-game stretches. All of these great things, even game winners to go along with these incredible moments. The king of the Euro step, the king of the step back, the king of the free throw line as well for a big portion of his career. But we all know how great James Harden is in the regular season, and that's why James Harden is top 5 amongst shooting guards all time for most people. But there is a reason, I feel like, as to why some people can't bump James Harden up even higher, maybe even until the top 3 of the shooting guard debates. And it's mainly because for as great as James Harden is in the regular season, for as great of a superstar as James Harden is in the regular season, notice how I keep saying regular season, in the playoffs, Brody has a tendency to turn from some bearded samurai in the regular season to Aang in the playoffs. Bro disappears. We don't know where he is. And it's problematic for a lot of people who are Rockets fans. Not me, though. The only reason that it's problematic for me is how many times I have rooted for James Harden prior to a series only for him to let me down. And I am obviously on the side of James Harden is a playoff choker, and I don't know if I need to give my reasons now or if I'm just addressing that and then Hoop's going to address his side. What are we doing, Sadie?
Just address first, so yeah, and then Hoop,
Got you.
you're going to give your little thing, and then Z, you're going to start off the argument.
There we go. James Harden is a playoff choker. I am on that side, along with most people with common sense who watch James Harden. But, as Hoopology said, he's going to try and find a way to defend the...
There's no try. There's no try. I've done my research. I've spent countless hours trying to... Because I knew in my heart that this was a wrong statement. And the reason it's such a popular statement, because when you look at the box score plainly, it shows it. You have to dig deeper to actually find these connections to other players in the NBA who have gone through a similar path. James Harden does not raise his ability in the playoffs, but he's on the same exact pathway of other volume scorers who have little help. I think calling him a playoff choker is not a ridiculous statement, because obviously he's had some games that are indefensible in terms of not performing to the level of a James you'd expect James Harden to. But there are other players in NBA history who are very comparable to James Harden, and there's enough evidence when James Harden has had help that he is a good playoff performer in terms of keeping his ability, as opposed to quote-unquote choking, because choking is not just playing a little below your ability. Choking is like very poor, and saying he's a historic choker is or I believe you mentioned one of the biggest chokers of all time. I think that's a little crazy, and it's just focusing on a few games that have pushed huge narratives that are not exactly true.
I knew that Hoop was going to bring up the comparison to other stars. I'm interested to see where he goes with that, but I knew that would be the only possible way that he could refute this claim, and I am for it. I know Hoop when he puts his mind to it and puts his research down and does his thing, he can come up with a good argument. So I'm ready for this. But for me, I boil it down to about three things when it comes to James Harden and the NBA playoffs. For me, for starters, when we talk about James Harden, like I previously mentioned, he's amongst the all-time greatest shooting guards for a reason. That reason for me, looking back historically, is majority regular season pros and great moments that he has. But when I look at the playoffs and I go back all the way to his first finals appearance in OKC, right? Now, James Harden shot terribly in that series. Saney was a Thunder fan. He remembers. However, if there was any way I could give James Harden the benefit of the doubt in that series, it was because Meta World Peace decided to try and end that man's life with an elbow before the playoffs had started. So he was a little concussed and things like that. His head really wasn't screwed on all the way straight, on top of the fact that the pressure was very, very, very on in that series, as we know. Durant was averaging 30. Westbrook was the second best player on the Thunder. But for James Harden coming off the bench and averaging, I believe, 12 points, maybe 13 on those shooting splits
13.
that he hit, 13 on, no, it was below 40. It was below 40 from the field.
I think you have your numbers wrong.
I might.
You shot the 2011 season. Is that what you're on about?
2012 in the finals. I'm talking about the finals.
2012 in the finals. Okay, continue.
Yeah, I'm talking about the finals. He significantly played.
L moderator. L moderator.
No, he said
No,
because I'm looking at his because he's shooting 44%, 43.5
Hey,
exact.
let's keep it wrong.
And he said below 40. So
Yep.
So in the playoffs, I mean in the regular season, Harden was playing phenomenal. In the finals though, Harden shot very, very, very badly. And I want like I said, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt because of getting popped in the head by Meta World Peace. I know that most men can't take that without ending up in a coma, so I give him a slight benefit of the doubt there. But and on top of the fact that it was his first final series, so that's a tad bit excusable. But then I go to 2013, his first year in Houston, right? They go back up, they match up against the team that he walked away from the previous year. He averaged in the playoffs in 2013, 26, 7, and 5 on 39% from the field, 34% from three-point line, and 80% from the free throw line, which is crazy for James Harden standards. In the regular season, he averaged 26, 5, and 6 on 44% from the field, 37% from three, and 85% from the free throw line. So obviously, this was a significant dip. But like I said, first final series with a new team. If you want to cut him some slack there, okay, cool. A theme in this is going to be how many times are we going to cut James Harden some slack in the playoffs? How many times are we going to cut a superstar slack in the playoffs? How many times are we going to cut an all-time great shooting guard slack in the NBA playoffs. Moving forward, 2014 first round. Everybody remembers this series because of Damian Lillard's iconic fadeaway at the buzzer that he hit in Game 6. But a lot of people might not know that Damian Lillard, in his second season, outplayed James Harden in the entire series. James Harden on the series averaged 27, 5, and 6 on 38% shooting from the field, 30% shooting from three, Jordan Poole numbers, 90% from the free throw line, James Harden numbers. Damian Lillard, on the other hand, 26, 6, and 6 on 47% shooting from the field, 49% shooting from three, and 88% shooting from the free throw line. So basically, long story short, Damian Lillard in his second and his sophomore year outplayed James Harden in the playoffs.
I just want to say, Z is being very generous here because he rounded up on those numbers. They were actually slightly worse than what he said. He rounded up on every number he just named. Literally every stat he just named, he rounded up.
And that's because I'm a round up guy. I loved math in first grade when I learned out how to do that. But anyway, 2015, let's move forward. After beating the Dallas Mavericks in the first round, and James Harden played phenomenal. The Mavericks were aging, but James Harden played phenomenal. The Rockets did what they needed to do. In the second round, they go up against the Clippers. Now, they go down 3-2 to the Los Angeles Clippers. If everybody remembers, in Game 6, James Harden scored 23 points on 5 of 20 shooting. 5 of 20 shooting. 23 points made, 20 shots attempted, 5 of them were made. Now, if you all remember this game, I remember it because the Houston Rockets went down 17 points to the Los Angeles Clippers. And they came all the way back from 17 points on the Los Angeles Clippers to win the game. James Harden did not play at all in that stretch. At all. His own head coach benched the franchise player, benched the superstar on the road in a pivotal elimination game because he was playing like doggy do. Now, do I cut him some slack there because the Houston Rockets won the series? Hell no. Because James Harden played like doggy do for the from Game 5 to Game 7 of that series. As a matter of fact, I took the liberty to look up the numbers from there. So in Game 5, he shot 9 of 20, which is 45%, which is not that bad. It's not that bad. But the 5 turnovers was pretty bad because that was just a story. That was just foreshadowing for James Harden turning the ball over in the playoffs. Obviously, I just mentioned the 5 of 20 game. And then in the Game 7, he shoots 7 of 20, which is 35% from the field, and had 7 turnovers to go along with that. So that's pretty damn bad. Moving away from that, though, because like I said, the Rockets did win the series, right? You move on to the conference finals against the Golden State Warriors. James Harden went stupid in Game 4 of that series to give the Rockets a 1 win in that series, while the Warriors had 3, obviously. And in the pivotal Game 5, James Harden shot 2 for 11 and had 12 turnovers. Ladies and gentlemen, take the cotton out of your ear, rewind the tape. I just said that James Harden had more turnovers in this game than field goals attempted. This is a superstar. This is Houston's finest right here. That's insane. That's actually insane. Now, I want to move on to 2016 because I remember when me and Sandy were talking about this a couple of episodes ago, I said I gave James Harden the benefit of the doubt in 2016. The only reason that I said that was because the Warriors were 73-9. I forgot to take into account that Steph Curry only played a total of 38 minutes in that entire freaking series. And I also took into account that Klay Thompson, if you really look at the numbers, you can make a legitimate argument that Klay Thompson outplayed James Harden in that entire freaking series. Now, benefit of the doubt comes in because I remember that Houston Rockets team being, I believe, the 8th seed. So when you're doing a team-to-team comparison, you're right. It's not that fair. Even with Steph being only playing 38 minutes, it's not that fair. But when you are the superstar in this matchup between your squad and the other guy's squad, and the other guy plays 38 minutes in the entire freaking series, and you are the guy to go out there and average, excuse me, let me make sure I get this right. Klay Thompson averaged 23.
I'm not going to let him talk forever, man. We can run year by year. I have no problem with that, but can we at least cut it into segments?
We'll cut it into segments. I got you. I'll stop right there because that's pre CP3.
Of course,
I'm gonna let you go, and then I'm gonna go post.
Hey,
CP3.
Z, he's trying to knock down this tower to fight against. He's trying to make it easier for himself. Bro. You keep spinning.
In 2013, James Harden's best teammates are Chandler Parsons and Jeremy Lin. James Harden, in general, in that Houston team, was the offensive motor, very similar to other superstar guards like Allen Iverson in Philly and Dwayne Wade in Young in Miami. Both guys who are also all-time great shooting guards. Guys like Dirk Nowitzki and Kevin Durant, pre-Warriors, also had these field goal struggles, considering when you go to the playoffs, the defense tightens up. The foul whistle gets softer. Obviously, for James Harden, that's not a good thing. But going into the 2013 series, Game 4 was the one he had 4 for 12 with 10 turnovers. But Game 5 was also a closeout game. He went 31 points, 7 for 9 from 3. This was against the finals. Not against the final, against the Thunder. Now, the Thunder went to the finals. By the way, Harden, in his playoff tenure in Houston, I think there were only 2 times where the team did not go to the finals, which was Portland and San Antonio. The teams they played, which is the Thunder, Los Angeles Lakers, they won the finals, the Warriors a bunch of times. They went to the finals. He had some awful matchups.
Thunder did not go to the finals any year James Harden played them.
No, it was the 20... I
Thunder
apologize.
had never been to
I
the finals.
apologize. That's not a good look on me. But Game 6 against the Thunder was also a closeout. He went 26, 7, and 6 with 2 steals, 2 blocks. James Harden has never had the benefit of the doubt of these other stars that I mentioned, like a Allen Iverson, where he's had some games especially the 2001 finals run.
That closeout game, James Harden shot 31.8% from the field. He went 7 for 22. Is that really somewhere? Chandler Parsons outplayed him that game. Chandler Parsons went 8 for 14, dropping 25. With 7.
I'm not sweating it, only because I think that the natural digression of these
and
high
Westbrook
usage
was
stars
injured
in the
this game, by the way.
playoffs.
Westbrook was
I
injured
know.
so.
I just think that the high usage stars have bad games in the playoffs. I'm looking at Allen Iverson right here in 2001. A closeout versus Indiana, shot 10 for 31 in a win. Game 7 closeout versus Toronto, shot 8 for 27 in a win. Game 5 versus Milwaukee, shot 5 for 27 in a win. Game 2 versus Milwaukee, shot 5 for 26. That's the game they lost. So he's had games where he's shot very poorly and got bailed out, and eventually went on to play the Lakers. And the game he takes off the Lakers is the one that everyone uses for his, Allen Iverson took a game off the Lakers. He should not have been there with the way he's, shooting. But the Philadelphia team carried him through bad stretches, which is something that the Houston Rockets have not really done until he got some help. Kevin Durant.
Oh, wait, what? Because the Rockets did low-key carry him through some terrible stretches, bro. Z just brought up a lot of good points. For example, the Clippers game where they went 17 straight and James Harden was on the bench. This game, in a closeout game, Chandler Parsons, the only reason it was close because Chandler Parsons decided to go dummy 8 for 14 as a Chandler Parsons player, and he held Kevin Durant to 27 points, shooting
Chandler Parsons is not creating his own shot like that.
Well,
there's games where, hold on, if we go over to another superstar, let's say Dirk Nowitzki. I think Dirk Nowitzki's 2011 finals, for him personally, is a little overrated. In his closeout game versus Miami, he shot 9 for 27. Jason Terry led the team with 27 points. So there's times where, you could be the best player on a team, but someone else is going to have a night and go off.
But
James Harden, later on his career. There's a lot of times with Allen Iverson. There's a lot of times with Kevin Durant pre-help. 2011 Memphis, Game 6 closeout, 11 points on 3 for 14 shooting. Game 5 closeout versus Dallas, 23 points on 40% shooting and a loss. 2016, right before he joined the Warriors, he's in 2 straight closeout games, shot 12 for 31, then 10 for 31. So there's just a lot of instances with a lot of superstars who get high usage in the regular season, who not only drop field goal percentage in a totality standpoint in the playoffs, but they have really awful games.
What about a guy like Luka?
Well, Luka's on a different category than James Harden.
They say Luka is the white James Harden, and
I think Luka Doncic is better than James Harden. Yeah.
Right. I'm just making sure we're good on that. But you can keep going on your point if you were still going.
So I just covered. Which year did I just cover? I believe it was 2013. In 2014, they would have had an extra game if Lillard didn't hit that buzzer beater in Game 7. Harden in that game, by the way, was 34-6 on 9 for 15 shooting in a closeout game. So he's had bad closeout games, but ignoring the good ones is kind of crazy. 2015, I believe we got to Game 7 versus the Clippers. He got 31, 8 and 7, 3 steals and a block, 9 points in the fourth quarter. Dwight Howard was not giving him any help in that 2015 series. Once again, like the help 2015 prior, even 2017 prior. Eric Gordon was his best player in 2017. Dwight Howard, let's not say wash, but not real Dwight Howard, was his best player for 2 years. Chandler Parsons, Jeremy Lin, like it was really Harden and the guys, like, and the shooters who were not really shooting. Like it was rough. So comparing him to guys like Damian Lillard, who, let's be honest, he really should not have outplayed James Harden, but he has guys to rely on like a LaMarcus Aldridge, who's a very reliable performer. I'm not going to put that to the same. Like Harden does not have someone to rely on that until later on in his career, when I believe he performs much better.
31 and 7 and 8 game that you just brought up. He shot 7. This is the biggest problem that I have.
Did they not win the game?
Yeah, they won the game. But when you're looking at a 3-game slate of James Harden shooting 20 shots, which he did, he shot 20 shots in 3 straight games. The first one he made 9 of them. The second one he made 5 of them. The third one he made 7 of them. So for me, looking at him from the field and the 3-point line, it's atrocious. But when you're looking at him, his 18 free throw attempts, that's where the points were produced. That's
Are we holding that against him?
You're not really. I don't really.
No. That's no. If it's a part of the game, points count. If it's a part, you don't hold that against him.
Right. But this is another point that I was making about James Harden and the reasons why I think that he has had playoff struggles. It's because we talk about James Harden and we talk about the high usage rate. We talk about the regular season dominance that he displays. We should also mention, and this is my third point, not the heaviest point, but it's one that's pretty obvious. James Harden's conditioning is dog water for a player of his caliber to be in a position where he is as the first option on a team that is considered a playoff contending team. If I was in the position that James Harden was in, I don't know if I would spend my nights before a playoff game in a strip club. I don't know if I would spend my off seasons in the strip club, eating wings.
Is that a fact? Is that a fact during the playoffs?
Yes,
James Harden?
yes. It is a fact. It was. Hold on, I got the picture right here. James Harden.
Hold on, because from a stretch from 2013 to 2019, he had a stretch where he played over 70 games, a lot of times much higher for each season, on one of the highest usage rates in the NBA, playing playoff games. So I'm not saying that like he's supposed to faint in the playoffs, like. Superstars are supposed to carry through, but that is not a healthy amount of basketball for a player to be continuously performing like that. We've seen a lot of guys fail like that. Allen Iverson failed like that. Dirk Nowitzki failed like that. I showed you the guys.
I don't think it's fair to compare a guy like Dirk Nowitzki, who's a 7-foot big man, who's on the same level as a guy
Allen
like
Iverson,
who's a 6'5" shooting guard conditioning.
Allen Iverson,
sure, Allen Iverson, but that's only one player to bring up. I'm just saying the conditioning. You can't.
But
blame
that's
the
not
fact
historical.
That
then, if these other all-time greats are failing in a similar way to James Harden in the playoffs, how is James Harden's playoff choking historical when we've seen this before?
Because
this is
James Harden
it's a new age
If
version.
it wasn't for Allen Iverson's one finals run,
I thought you were the moderator, dog.
I'm just saying, I'm giving up points. Like you can't, like the conditioning is not it's not a good point to say that he plays 70+ games, so that's an excuse for his
No. I said that because Z said he was spending his time in strip clubs. I think that's a horrible point.
It's not, because when you look at James Harden,
I don't want to know what people. How are we supposed to analyze what people are doing before games? I have no idea what he's doing before the games. I have no idea.
Let's look back. We saw
that
the
is
last
why I asked
dance.
if it's a fact.
We saw The Last Dance, right? We saw The Last Dance. I believe it was episode 6 or 7. They were talking about how MJ was being crucified in the media for going out and gambling before a playoff game. And in that playoff game, he played like dog water because he was out till 4 a.m.
So how do we know what Allen Iverson is doing before a game? Like
it's Allen Iverson, bro. I've seen.
But
a lot
I'm
of
saying
Allen
these
Iverson
things that are not related to basketball. It's really hard to pin against the guy because I don't know what James Harden is doing in his spare. I have no idea what's he doing before a game.
I do.
I feel like that's an invalid point.
It's not an invalid point because when you look at James Harden, when you look at a superstar, and when you're looking at them from a longevity aspect, when you're looking at how they play the game, and if that way that he plays on the offensive end can translate for not just 5 years, not just 10 years, but for 12, 13, blah, 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 blah. Look at a player like LeBron. Nobody has the workout regimen that LeBron does because it's $2.5 million in offseason probably, but it's LeBron. He's willing to put his 38,000-year-old body through that for 20 years. Kawhi Leonard, load management. We hate on him so much for it, but in the playoffs, we've talked about how Kawhi Leonard is always on go. It's
if
a
James Harden
aspect.
load managed and the Rockets lost a bunch of games, would you?
Steph Curry, the cardio that Steph Curry does. Steph Curry.
But how are we supposed to know this stuff?
This is not a
You
good
see
point.
this stuff in workout videos. Like I don't want to debate over James Harden. Which club did James Harden go to before a playoff game? I am not going to hold that against him. I compare him to him what other people are doing on the court.
His conditioning is the point that I am making. And we have seen 3 times in James Harden's career where he has walked out of the court and looked like Mark Henry. And we've wondered what the hell is going on. The first time
he was
when
trying
he was trying to get out,
traded.
Right, he was trying to get out of Houston. And then the second time he was trying to get out of Brooklyn. And then the third, you see what I'm saying? It's so we've seen it 3 times. I haven't seen that from a player like
What does this have to do? Why does this have to do with playoff performing? This has nothing to do with playoff performance. If we just said he's trying to get out of the situation.
So in the regular season, when we look at James Harden, right? Why do you think that his playoff numbers or his percentages drop in the playoffs, Hoop? When you look at his style of basketball, the isolation, the power dribbles, running down the shot clock whenever he feels like it, the predictable step back jumper that people have picked up on in the past 5 years or so, the fouls that you brought up, the referees do not blow the whistle as much. So Harden's getting hit a little bit more than he was in the regular season and not getting the calls for it, not going to the line for it, except on certain occasions where he shoots 7 of 20 and manages to get 18 free throws in the same game. So when you look at him from the regular season, his free throw attempts go down as well. Part of that is because the referees are not blowing the whistle, but at the same time, they're saying, let the boys play. When you look at James Harden playing, though, he's driving in the lane, doing everything that he was doing in the regular season, and it's not working. So I'm saying when you are looking, and another thing, if James Harden does not have the ball in his hand, looking back on these Houston years, even the Brooklyn years, even the Philly years, if James Harden doesn't have the ball in his hand on the offensive end, he's walking up the court. He's not a great catch and shoot. And when you look at his catch and shoot percentage, it's like slightly above league average. So for a superstar of his caliber, catch and shoots are not really his thing. We know that. Not like a Klay Thompson, not like a Kyle Korver, whatever, someone else that's at the shooting guard position. So when you look at that, and you also take into account his poor defensive ability, his conditioning is through the roof. I have a quote right here from Kevin Durant after the Warriors had beat the Houston Rockets. Kevin Durant said, let me see. Kevin Durant said, "We knew that James Harden was going to go out there and dribble the ball around and kill clock and things of that nature. We also wanted to make a point to attack him on the defensive end." So when you have a player like James Harden, who, if he doesn't have the ball in his hand, if he isn't isolating and trying to, hit the step back, hit the Euro step, or do a freaking alley-oop to Clint Capella, players are going to attack him on the defensive end even more. If you are a superstar and you are playing in the playoffs, you know for a fact that every element of your game needs to elevate in the playoffs, including if you are a lackluster defender. You need
Literally
to at least be able...
everything you said applies to Allen Iverson.
So let me get this straight.
We also mentioned before, I said that it's because of Harden's high usage rate. It's because of the fact that in a lot of those early Houston years, no one else on the Rockets could create their own shot. That in the playoffs, when defense tightens up and the whistle gets lighter, he is going to underperform in terms of field goal percentage. We saw it with these other volume scorers in the regular season with limited help, who have to create a lot on their own. That's why I brought up guys like Kevin Durant, AI, Dirk. Regardless if they're at their position, we could just compare him to AI or Dwayne Wade if we want. I just don't understand why we're trying to pin his non-defensive abilities when we already know he doesn't do that in the regular season. Like, I thought the whole point was trying to compare James Harden to playoff James Harden instead of, like, trying to make him the perfect player. Like, what is your point with the defense?
The point with the defense was the same point that I was making on yours about the usage rate and things of that nature. Another thing I wanted to go back to for a split second was when you were talking about Damian Lillard, and we were talking about that series. The Portland Trailblazers and the Houston Rockets had the same exact record that year. So the argument of Damian Lillard having more guys to do more things is kind of bogus because
But is it true,
Harden...
though? Is it true, though?
LaMarcus Aldridge? Sure. I can get behind
Compared
that.
to who?
Compared to, what would you say, Chandler Parsons, compared to Dwight's first year there. It's not... I mean, yeah, we can compare LaMarcus to Dwight Howard, I guess, if you want to. But, I mean, Dwight Howard was the second best player on the Rockets that season.
I'm saying as an inefficient guard scorer, because Damian Lillard is the same, he is going to have the benefit of a doubt playing with someone who is also effective at creating their own shot on the offensive end. James Harden does not have any of that. That's why his bad games are so awful, because no one on that team is creating their own shot. So if James Harden is having an off shooting night, it is going to look horrendous compared to these other guys who could fall back on other capable players to carry them through a game when they're performing poorly. James Harden does not have that luxury, so his games look that much more awful. Similar to Allen Iverson.
You would say no. So are you saying that Allen Iverson and James Harden had the same level of we need to get this done with just us and we don't have anybody around us? Because I can't. Well,
James Harden has more spacing, but it's a comparative to era. Allen Iverson had a somewhat similar offensively constructed roster to the rest of the league. The spacing was not incredible back then for any team.
Right.
I agree that even Allen Iverson is more exaggerated in terms of he had less offensive help. But let's not act like James Harden had this perfect offensive team. So it was built around him to win regular season games, but anyone who understands basketball to a certain extent can expect that level of production from Harden to go down in the playoffs when you're playing a team up to 7 times, when they can see him every game and close him off and make Trevor Ariza beat you, make Jeremy Lin beat you, make Chandler Parsons beat you. It almost worked one time. Chandler Parsons did drop a lot of points. But I'm saying, like, it's much more difficult when you have these incapable shot creators to carry you through a game, as opposed to, I mean, I don't want to use Dame because he's young and it's LaMarcus Aldridge, but like that's just a light example of a guy who is a inefficient, because Dame was never really efficient, perimeter shot creator who has someone else to rely on.
I don't like the logic of if they've given you a team that's built to win regular season games, and then we're just supposed to just be like, oh yeah, the Rockets are going to fall off in the playoffs no matter if they won. Do you not see that though?
This is I'm saying this is a trend. This is a trend. This is a trend.
Another thing that's a trend is James Harden's terrible shooting and turnovers. That's a trend.
So same with Allen Iverson. Same with Allen Iverson.
I don't think Allen Iverson turned the ball over as much as James Harden did, and I'm just saying that
because he was not as much of a willing passer. James Harden's also a playmaker.
That's another thing. James Harden, if you are a playmaker and an isolation scorer, that's your combo thing. That's your build in 2K. You can score. If you isolate, you can score. Put the ball on the floor, do your thing. But at the same time, if the defense is reading you and you see a double team coming, a triple team coming, you can kick the ball out and all these great things. I'm not excusing James Harden shooting 2 for 11 and having 12 freaking turnovers in an elimination game. Another thing that I want to point out is this. James Harden,
once again, that's like there's these games that happen, and once again, I explained that it's bad when it happens because there's very limited help, similar to Allen Iverson. But these limited games are not a trend because there's plenty of elimination games where he's played well, and we could get into these later years because I really want to. We're already at 30 minutes where he's played well, like really well.
Right. That was what I was about to get into. When you look at
you can go into an hour, by the way. Don't stress about time.
Okay, cool. I'm just saying.
We might need it.
I don't know. I'm starting to get a little headache here. But anyway, I'm just saying. When we go into those later years where I had gotten cut off at the first time, I want to talk about the 2017 to on years. So 2017 was James Harden's worst playoff series probably of his entire career. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's San Antonio. Bro had a meltdown amongst meltdowns. And this is a year that ended up setting us up for 2018, the MVP year, right? So in 2017, 2 for 11, 10 points, 6 turnovers, and an elimination game with no Kawhi Leonard and no Tony Parker. So another thing that I used to say was, could I use the argument of other players being on the other team for James Harden? Can I look at it from that perspective? And the fact that there are multiple series where I can't really use that argument is that's where I'm kind of stuck here. No Kawhi Leonard, no Tony Parker. You scored 10 points for your team as the number one guy in a series where everybody is pretty much thinking you got it in the bag and you fumble the damn bag.
Yeah, I'll be honest. We don't need to waste 15 minutes on this game alone because it's an awful game.
Perfect. You understand.
Yeah, the only thing I would like to say is in that year, they beat OKC in 5 in round 1. In that closeout, he had 34, 8, and 7, 3 steals, 2 blocks. Game 7 versus San Antonio was a complete no-show. Not only was it a no-show because he only took 11 shots, he eventually quit on the team. That was a really bad game. The only thing that it doesn't soften the blow at all. But the leading shooter on the Rockets was Pat Bev with shooting 50%. Houston shot 28%, so there was no one in that game.
Well, when
That's all I was gonna say.
Pat Bev, when he's on your team, he's guaranteed to make the
Are
playoffs.
we really gonna credit James Harden for that Thunder win? By the way, like he had 33 on 41%, and the Thunder's second best player was Victor Oladipo, averaging 10 points on 36 minutes.
Well, I'm saying he played well in a closeout game.
Okay, I see. I mean, that's the.
I'm saying like he
basis
should have
of
beat the
point.
Thunder. He should have beat the Thunder,
Right.
but I'm saying it was a good closeout game.
So in 2018,
I'm sorry, I just have to
get.
give out a fact. In
Go
that
ahead.
closeout game, he shot 32% and 2 for 13 from 3. That's all I'm gonna
It
say.
was like 30. Man, I don't care.
34 on 2
34,
for 13 from 3, and
34,
8
8
for
and
25.
7
This
with
is
3
my
steals,
point.
2 blocks.
I cannot
With
look
5
at James
turnovers.
Harden.
He's not.
5
I
turnovers
already.
and 32%.
I
Come on,
already.
bro.
I
50% from
already.
three,
I
that's not a good
already
game.
explained. I already explained that James Harden is not efficient in the playoffs because of everything I mentioned. Him having no help early on. If we want to get later, we can talk later because then the excuses are gone.
Okay.
But this is a trend. I keep going back to the guys like Allen Iverson, Dwayne Wade. They've had awful games.
So you want to know
Like-
what else is a trend for James Harden when he goes into these playoff blunders and losses? A trend for James Harden is not even taking accountability. I remember going back and listening to him in the post-game interviews. And there's
No.
a reason-
No.
This isn't a
Post game interviews.
Yeah, nah, he's right.
Nah.
Hoop's
Think
right.
about this. Think about this. James Harden's best. Who were James Harden's best 2 teammates in Houston for his career? For his career. Tell me that. Who were his best 2?
Probably Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook. Right?
Not Dwight Howard. You wouldn't say Dwight?
No.
You'd say Russ over Dwight?
Yeah,
And
Russ
Dwight
was-
played more.
Russ
had more
Russ
playoff
was
series with.
insane
Well,
on the
hold on.
Rockets.
If you want to say like in totality, you probably say Dwight, but like Russ was real solid
So
that
here's
year.
here's my thing, right? And if you want to say Russ, I'm not mad at you. I understand. Russ was balling that year, but when you look at the best 2 teammates that the Houston Rockets front office said, here you go, right? They gave him Dwight in a time where they needed a center, and Clint Capella was still developing. And then once Dwight was gone, and then in 2018 and 19 years, Clint Capella was a lob threat like they needed him to be, like Dwight was. And an interior presence was off the charts. But I'm saying, Dwight Howard and Chris Paul both had fallouts with James Harden after the way that they were treated on their way out of Houston. Harden was like, it's your fault. It's you guys' fault, not mine. The accountability part for a superstar, when you look at James Harden's game 3,
don't.
let me hold on. This is the point that I want to make about James Harden. Next, James Harden has a tendency to kind of either if James Harden goes off, if his team is up 3-0, if his team is up 3-1, if he's down 0-3, or if he's down 3-1. That's where I really see James Harden giving me these efficient 35-plus point per game performances. That's where I really see it. And when you go back to that box score and you look and you think about that, I want you to really think about that. Look at the serious that James Harden has had. Tell me how many times have we said, damn, James, you played well the whole damn time. You played well over a 6-game stretch, a 7-game stretch. Or you have games where you can give the Warriors 1 win in 2015, a game 4 performance, 35 plus, and then the next game you have 11 attempts from the field and 12 turnovers. But
Comparing Harden to these other volume scorers, what other volume scorer has elevated their play to a point where they are balling through an entire playoff stretch? Like they all have their awful games.
so when you are putting him in so let me ask you this question. What tier, this is a perfect question, what tier are we willing to put James Harden superstar caliber in?
I'm trying to compare him to other players who are
Because
who are
I
arguably
just
debated.
want to know. This is an MVP. This is one of the greatest scorers of all
No,
time.
I'm saying he's like a top 40, 45 player, but like
Okay, fair.
not to the point of, Dirk is in that
Right.
upper echelon for many people. Like he's in the mix with these other guys I was naming, like
Okay.
AI.
So I like the AI comparison. I really do. That one is spot on when you were looking at, because we talked about AI and his 4 scoring titles and how inefficient they were. But and I like how we're taking inefficiency into account when talking about Allen Iverson and James Harden. It's valid. It's completely justifiable. But another thing that I want to point to is James Harden and the narratives that he's had for him in the playoffs, so the situations that have been placed upon him in the playoffs. That's another area where I really want to look at, right? In 2018, that CP series, the Rockets won 3 games, obviously. In that 3-game, in all of those wins, in each of the wins, James Harden, it's total, right? James Harden had 76 points, 11 assists, and 12 turnovers. So in the 3 games that they won, He had more turnovers and assists, 76 points on 25 of 71% shooting, or 25 of 71 field goal attempts, and 6 of 38 from three-point line. So I was reading an article the other day, and it said James Harden, and now we can accredit, some people like to credit James Harden's playoff woes to the Golden State Warriors. But when you look back at those series, you see it really looks like James Harden is trying to outshoot Steph Curry. He's trying to go shot for shot with Steph Curry. We talked about the D'Antoni system and how a lot of teams after the Warriors just started winning championships figured, hey, if they live by the three and die by the three, we can do that. But then you start to realize when the Houston Rockets in Game 7 missed 27 straight threes and James Harden had missed 10 of those, he had 10 of those misses, that's kind of crazy. Because when you really look back on the game, you can tell they're shooting a lot of open shots and they're just trying to play the same style of ball and just trying to see if it can work for them. James Harden in those series against the Warriors, that is the best point that I've really seen when really being able to try and analyze it, is that he does look like he's just trying to outshoot Steph.
Well, not only is he trying to outshoot Steph, but earlier in those wins, he's trying to outshoot Steph, KD, and Klay Thompson. In Game 7, obviously Chris Paul was down, but I believe Klay Thompson was also down. You can tell me if I'm wrong. He scored, I believe, 10 points in the fourth quarter. He shot like 5 for 7. In that closeout game, in general, he was 32, 6, and 6 with 4 steals. He had, 10 points in the fourth quarter, 5 for 7. So I understand that, that was a game where the Rockets should have won, but that was a Rockets collapse. Once again, these Rockets, without another talented shot creator or dynamic player like Chris Paul, they go nowhere. Because locking in on one creative, not like, again, Luka's in a different tier, but locking down on a superstar who is like high usage, especially when they rely on free throws of sorts, it's historically like it's easy to lock down on based on these other players that we've seen throughout history. James Harden is not an exception to this phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
If I could lead into another point,
go ahead.
I want to get into when he actually has help like available to him, because obviously with Chris Paul being out, that was a huge blow. Getting into 2019, this is with Chris Paul as well. They beat Utah in 5 games. In Game 5, which is a closeout, he has 26, 6, and 6, 4 blocks. This is Chris Paul. He averaged against Golden State this series 35, 5, and 7, 2 steals on 44, 35, 82. They lost the game, but in the closeout, Game 6, 35, 5, and 8 on 4 steals. 2020, Chris Paul is healthy the whole season, plays great. 2020 with Russell Westbrook, the losing second round to the Lakers, eventually go to win the championship. Beat the Thunder in 7 in the closeout Game 6 that they lost against the Thunder. He went 32, 7, and 8 on 50% shooting. Closeout Game 7, they won. He had like 17, 9, and 3, 2 steals, 3 blocks, but Chris Paul went for a lot of, not Chris Paul, I apologize. Russ, Eric Gordon, and someone else all were above 20. They had a lot of threes. Against the Lakers, must-win Game 5, goes 35 and 6, is in the bubble on 60% shooting. So there was not these major blunders that you've seen without another dynamic player on the court. Even when it's Russ, even when it's Chris Paul, these guys are both guys that are considered playoff chokers. Like those are also guys that are not considered solid in the playoffs.
In that Game 7, you tried to like skim past that he had 17 and blah blah blah. But he shot 4 of 15 in that Game 7. The only reason that it's overlooked is because
again, this is a similar game to someone like Allen Iverson, except his players actually stepped up for him. Am I wrong?
Right. You're right. His players did step up for him. My thing is that if mind you, I think they won that game by a point. But the only reason that we choose to not look back at this game actually in depth and see that he shot 4 of 15 is because if he didn't have the game-winning block and they didn't win by a point, then it would really be just another blow. But he did have valuable guys helping him out. Another thing that you wanted to point to, that you pointed out, was the Lakers series, right? So James Harden and the Rockets won Game 1 of that series, right? And from that game on, James Harden disappeared in the next 4 games. In the fourth quarter, specifically. Now, once again, I will say this. Benefit of the doubt is, the only benefit of the doubt that I give him is that I would have picked the Lakers to win the championship with or without a bubble because they were rolling before COVID even hit. And that team, the way that they were constructed, every single element of that team was filled. Every position of that team was filled. They had rebounders, they had distributors, they had bench pieces, they had LeBron and AD. Shooters around them as well. That team was perfect. Rob Pelinka, good job. But when I look at the fourth quarter point totals from games 1 through 5, he had 5 points, 5 points, 5, 5, and 6, and 3 in the closeout game. What was it? They lost in 5 that series, right?
Well, in that closeout game, he had 35 and 6 on 60% shooting.
And 3 points in the fourth quarter.
They won the game. They're not.
No, I'm talking about the last game. Yeah. No,
I apologize. Yeah, game 5.
Okay. So I'm just saying.
Are you saying that's not a good game? Like, are you saying
no? It's a good game. It's a good game. But here's the thing, right? When me and Sandy were going at it, I was like, dude, when you look at fourth quarter performances, right? Sandy just had a take about Luka Doncic that we posted on TikTok where he's saying that he would take 5 to 6 guys over Luka Doncic in the clutch. And Luka Doncic, at the time that freaking post was made, was shooting 18% from 3 in the fourth quarter. Yet casuals in the comment section were like, hey, whoa, you said De'Aaron Fox? Bro said De'Aaron Fox. Bro said De'Aaron Fox.
What does this have to do with James Harden?
Hold on.
Because I will mention that this Luka fourth quarter woes is very similar to that effect that James Harden has.
So when Luka in the fourth quarter, his woes right now go under the radar because of how much he does in the first 3 quarters. But then in the fourth quarter, when the game is on the line and really matters the most, it's not as pretty as you think it is, or as much people would let on. For James Harden, in his playoff career specifically, fourth quarters are not really like as great as they could be for other stars.
Well, for other stars like a Kevin Durant, guys that are tiers above him, but compared to the guys that I'm comparing him to, they're not taking over fourth quarters like these top 15 players of all time. So you got to compare him to the guys that he should be compared to.
But these are the guys that you're bringing up. You brought up Dirk for a second, and I still don't think that's a good comparison because Dirk's a 7-foot German god.
But is it not the same? Like,
when you're talking about like usage rates, I kind of understand it. But Dirk Nowitzki
he's the offensive motor.
Dirk Nowitzki is not putting up 12 turnovers a game. That wasn't what Dirk does. I can't put him in the same light as Dirk Nowitzki because when you look at James Harden, their play styles are completely different. I can point to a lot of turnovers in the playoffs where James Harden is dribbling out 23 seconds on the clock and then trying to make a move and then messing up the entire offense. Dirk Nowitzki, on the other hand, is getting the ball in the post. What I'm missing the only thing I'm looking for him to do is a turnaround fadeaway, a hook shot, maybe a drive in the lane, a left hand, and maybe an and one. That's all I'm looking for.
Is it more excusable when he goes 9 for 27 in a finals game when his teammate carries him?
See, early years of Dirk, like the 2006 finals where he missed crucial free throws, like that's like you can kind of excuse it, but I wouldn't argue if you didn't want to, because this is your number one guy, this is your franchise guy, the biggest moment of the entire freaking season, and you're at the line and you're missing free throws in pivotal game 3s and 4s of the finals. Like, I'm gonna be mad, obviously, and and the media did point that and put that right on Dirk Nowitzki up until 2011. That's the reason why Dirk Nowitzki got his MVP when he was already sent home. And that was major stuff. That was major news coverage because Dirk had went from after 2006, 2007, 8, 9, 10. You could point to each and every single one of those playoff runs that he had in between that duration, and you could point to how bad he was, and the media held him accountable. He even held himself accountable in his own documentary. But then you get all the way up to 2011.
But in 2011, right? Dirk was not as great as everyone makes it seem.
You're right. The only reason that we look at it is because of the amount of teams
that he beat on the way there. It's because his teammates came through. Right. Because his teammates carried through. Something that James Harden has not had the luxury of.
But in pivotal... so what about the last time James Harden was in the play... So this is another thing I want to get to. The last two...
I want to talk about the late seasons, too.
The last 2 playoff series, I know that you were talking about... Go ahead.
Yes. If we could get into Brooklyn, regular season Brooklyn, when he initially got traded for being fat, he lost in the second round to the Bucks in 7, but this was an interesting series because he started off healthy. Then he missed 3 games. He beat the Celtics sort of healthy. At the end of the regular season, he sat out a bunch of games, but he came back, played the full Celtics series. Before his 3-game injury absence, which started in Milwaukee, he was 28, 11, and 7 on 2 steals, a block on 56, 48, 90. This is the entire Celtics series. Then he gets a bad hamstring, misses 3 games, goes back in Milwaukee to help Kevin Durant, because at the point Kevin Durant only had like Bruce Brown, Seth Curry, Blake Griffin, no one else to create, so he had to go out there. Still went in the closeout 22, 9, and 9, played 53 minutes on a bad hammy. He looked visibly injured. He was forced to chuck shots. He was inefficient, but like Kyrie was out there, he needed to shoot those shots. So go back and watch the game. This is not him just trying to take over. Like Kevin Durant already took like 34 shots. He had to do something. After returning from injury in total, though, he was 14, 8, and 7 on 30, 19, 89. He was visibly injured. But before that, when he actually had help for once, and Kevin Durant, and I think, like, those guys that are, ranked 40, 50 all time, like, they're not bona fide number one first option on a championship team. When James Harden is in the place he should be, 28, 11, 7, 2 steals, block, 56, 48, 90. That is a vintage James Harden. That is when I honestly think that Brooklyn may have been peak James Harden. I think that's when he had the best mix of his shooting and playmaking. The Bucks obviously won the finals. In Philadelphia, obviously still visibly injured. They beat Toronto. Harden in the closeout goes 22, 15, and 6. He was much more of a playmaker. He was not looking to score as much because he didn't have his first step. In the closeout, shoots 4 for 9, has 9 assists. The only reason I am excusing of that, first off, because he doesn't have his legs under him, but also he never took more than 17 shots that whole playoff series. So it was a low amount of shots, but it was not ridiculous. And Tyrese Maxey, when healthy, was also much better. And Tyrese Maxey took like 20-something shots. Joel Embiid took 20-something shots. So there were not a lot to go around, and he was more of a playmaker in that game. So that closeout, in terms of him being disappearing, I don't value much. But I just think looking at 2021 when he was like in peak shape, he also sat out the end of the regular season injured. So like, it's just a situation in where when Allen Iverson was in with Carmelo Anthony, he was still inefficient. I think that was the time where like this is going to be peak James Harden. Then he gets injured and it never happens. We might get to see it again this year, but that was a series where I was like, yeah, this is where you're supposed to be.
So here's my thing, right? When I evaluate those two playoff series, it's interesting. Because he's hurt in both of them, coming off of injury in both of them. I think he was hurt worse in the Brooklyn series than he was in the Philly series, but he was hurt.
Well,
right?
we're talking year to year or
right.
series to series.
Series to series. Milwaukee and then
he was like struggling to sprint in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. In Philly, he didn't have his first step.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, when I look at the Brooklyn game, right, I remember saying he's shooting. He has one hamstring and he's shooting 5 of 17. He shot 17 shots, right? And it comes a point in time when you look back at that game was not, they didn't lose in a rout. They lost in close fashion, right? If I'm not mistaken. So James Harden's shooting woes end up falling on a chart to me. And you want to know where that chart is? When I look at James Harden I looked up his entire totals from his playoff career for game 5s, game 6s, and game 7s. In game 5s, would you believe James Harden averages 23 points per game, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 turnovers. Mind you, let's keep a look at the turnovers. 44% from the field and 30% from 3. In game 6s, he averages 21, 5, 6, 4 turnovers, 42% shooting from the field. I was going to round up, but I'm not feeling generous no more. 30 and 39% from 3, which isn't as bad, right? But watch how it flip-flops. In game 7s, he averages 24 a game, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, 4 turnovers on 37% shooting from the field and 22% shooting from the three-point line. So, in the 3 most pivotal games of a 7-game series, in the last one is where he shoots the ball the worst.
And Allen Iverson shot 40% for his entire
I don't give a damn about Allen Iverson. I'm talking about James Harden.
We're talking about him being a historical outlier as a choker.
Right.
Yeah, we can't compare him to other players.
We can no. If you were comparing him to Allen Iverson, that's great, and you have a reason. You have your reasons for it. I'm looking at James Harden as a guy who has been looked at as a superstar.
What does this have to do with Brooklyn? What does that have to do with Brooklyn?
What do you mean?
I thought we were talking about how he actually had help in Brooklyn, played well, and now we're just breezing over it.
No. I said in Brooklyn he shot 5 of 17, but you're right. He was hurt.
I'm saying before the injury, he was playing remarkably.
Your point of him being at his peak in terms of play,
and he actually had a valid player to take.
Now, if we're taking if in a hypothetical, if Kyrie's playing and KD's playing and Harden and they're all healthy, I was really looking forward to seeing how that was going to work come playoff time. But I know for a fact that between the 3 of them, I think it's safe to say that James Harden would have averaged probably the least amount of attempts between the 3 if they were all healthy, because he would have been more focused on distributing the ball to other guys, right?
Sure.
So
I don't think that. I think he'd still be the second best player on the court, though. He was clearly MVP.
Right,
he was playing an MVP level.
I was saying he was the second best player too back then.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Do you hold? Sorry, I'll let you go. But do you hold the 5 for 17 against Harden in that closeout?
I don't hold it entirely because my main thought is that he's hurt. That's the first thing I'm thinking of, right? But
I think he needed to shoot those 17.
Really?
Because I think that saying James Harden don't shoot and him being a complete decoy would have been worse for the team because, once again, they had no one else to create shots. He played 53-something minutes. He needs to put up shots in, again, this is not a vintage James Harden throw up 30, see what goes in. He's hurt. Kevin Durant already put up 34 shots. Kevin Durant does not shoot the ball a ton. If Kevin Durant is deferring to Harden and Harden is open, you need to shoot the shot. So I understand that he was hurt, but him playing that game, playing 53 minutes on a gimpy leg and putting up pretty decent numbers, like in terms of a playmaker, I don't hold that against him at all. I think that's an invalid point.
So what about the other Game 7s then? Because
once again, this falls to those indicators I pointed out before. When you're a volume scorer with no help, a lot of times in big moments, whether it's a fourth quarter in a game, whether it's a Game 7, when teams need to beat you, they are going to lock you down and make someone else beat you. They have no one else. The Rockets, Chandler Parsons, Dwight Howard. Chandler Parsons beat him once. They are not going to beat the other team. It's when you can defer to a Chris Paul or a Russell Westbrook sometimes that James Harden is going to have good closeout games because he can actually operate. Their goal is to take the ball out of James Harden's hands, and it's worked. Because the Rockets have nothing. They have Patrick Beverley. They have Trevor Ariza. They have Eric Gordon. This is like a long stretch of time where Harden has had nothing. Once again, similar to Allen Iverson, similar to Dirk, similar to Dwayne Wade. Like, we've seen this trend before, and the second he gets to play with Kevin Durant fully healthy at the peak of his powers, he goes stupid before getting hurt.
So let me get this straight. So you were saying how the Rockets, he doesn't have help, but yet the Rockets are winning 50-plus games a year.
Because I think it's clear. I don't know if it's clear for you that the Rockets are designed to be a regular season team.
Okay, so
they built around James Harden because teams are not going to game plan on a night-to-night basis. Oh, kill James Harden, make the others beat us. James Harden, when you go into Houston on a random night, James Harden's going to torch you. They put the correct pieces around him to make the offense flow, but getting into the playoffs, it should be when you think about every time these guys that are volume scorers don't perform well, a lot of times they don't have a mid-range game. James Harden does not have a great mid-range game. All these scorers you think of. I feel like it's just a template of a player who performs better in the regular season. Once again, I've said it with the other players. All their efficiencies drop. James Harden's efficiency does not drop as much as you think it is. The reason he shoots like 44% regular season, it's like 41% in the postseason. Like a 3% drop, compared that to guys like KD who might have like a 2% drop, it looks so much worse because he's already low. But his true shooting percentage, I made a video on this, is very high because he takes three-pointers, takes a lot of free throws. So he's scoring points when it doesn't exactly translate very healthy to the field goal percentage. Because 3 points are worth more than 2. So if you are going to take 2 3-pointers as opposed to 2 2-pointers, it's a more efficient shot. So you can miss more threes considering that it's worth more points, and it's still as efficient as the 2s. So with James Harden, these numbers look awful, but they're not as awful as you make them seem, especially when comparing the guys with Allen Iverson, who didn't even shoot threes.
So
his efficiency is almost on those 2-pointers.
I just read you the numbers for games 5, 6, and 7.
I'm telling you why.
I don't like the why, though, because here's the thing. The why means that I got to go back each and every single year and try and find a way to cut the guy some slack. I don't like that when I'm talking about my all-time guys. When I'm looking at guys like Luka Doncic, whose entire team is his entire team. He can put up better numbers than James Harden can.
Because he's better than James Harden.
Right.
Because he's better than James Harden.
I can put up. Look at Ja in his 2 seasons so far. Ja showed
the Grizzlies are incredible without Ja Morant.
Right. Okay. So here's my point. Here's my point. Right. I can name a lot of guys who are looked at so far as legends, who are looked at as young superstars, who are looked at as rising superstars. I'm confident to say that I would put Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I will take Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in a 7-game series over James Harden.
How are you going? What the heck?
I'm confident in saying that. Here's the thing. James Harden has had more playoff lowlights than highlights. The only highlights that he's had.
The highlight. No, dude. All right. So we need to get back to this in a general sense. Once again, I misread the information before, but he's played a team that has gone to the finals a lot of years. Whether it's the Warriors, whether it's the Lakers, whether it's the whoever. Those are not easy matchups playing into the Warriors every year. There's a situation where if James Harden stays healthy in Brooklyn and Chris Paul is healthy against the Rockets, he has 2 rings right now. We would not be having these discussions if James.
So once again, let's look back at that game 7. I don't know how you justify a 65-plus win Rockets
Because
team.
the
A
Rockets
65-plus win Rockets team. Hold on. The narrative the season before was, if I'm not mistaken, oh, they don't have Chris Paul. They don't have Chris Paul. A season later, the Warriors lose their best player. Steph Curry in this game has 0 points in the first half. Not to mention the Rockets being up 15 or 17 points at one point in the game early on, right? So the Rockets miss a league record 27 straight threes. Your star player has 10 of those misses. I can't excuse. I remember as soon as they lost in 2019, before you say anything, I remember as soon as they lost in 2019, a day later, I was on the way to school. I went to YouTube to see the highlights of the game, just to see it again, right? Because I went to sleep and I think I had nightmares from how bad they were freaking shooting. But anyway, I'm just saying, when I was on the bus, I looked up this video. It was on the Rockets and the Warriors. This ESPN had made a video and it was titled, "What is the Rockets' excuse now?" For 7 to 10 minutes on the way to school, I was watching them say the same thing that I just told you. We have given the Rockets the benefit of the doubt a lot of the time, simply because the name across the other name on the marquee is the Golden State Warriors. Not to mention the fact that in 2018, you can make a legit argument, and even in 2019, that the Rockets had an overall better team outside of the Warriors having Steph, Clay, and KD, and Draymond, and half of Iguodala. But the Warriors' depth, as I said, in those years, from 2017 to 2019, went down significantly. There's a reason why when KD got hurt, everybody was like, oh crap, the Warriors are legitimately in trouble against the Raptors. And then when Clay went down, it was inevitable. It was genuinely inevitable. Who else was going to do it? Aaron McKinney? Jordan Bell? Like, no. Like, what do you mean? Meanwhile, the Rockets are out there having guys like James Harden, having second options like Chris Paul, having
Steph
3
Curry
guys like Trevor Ariza.
Is a much better player than James Harden.
Okay, so Steph Curry, Steph Curry had his moments of being labeled as a guy who shrinks in the postseason. Now, there was in the earlier years.
Notice how it was
Steph Curry
before the help
their
came.
Minds.
Notice how it was before the help came.
Don't put
It
that on
wasn't.
Curry's even his recent playoff performances like this.
He's the one against Boston. Like after the game, he went crazy. He's had disappearing acts.
He had one disappearing game and then came back the game after.
Yeah, James Harden will go off in the first 2 games, and then by the last.
So why do we put more value on games that he plays poorly simply because it looks bad? Every game of a playoff series, when you think about it in terms of their numerical value, matter the same amount. The only difference is the pressure of the game. You need to win.
Let's take hold up. Let's take a breather here because you guys have been going back and forth for a solid 40 minutes, and I have not chimed in because I wanted to let you guys have your fun. But why don't we have a little bit of a breather here? Jeez Louise. I don't think we could talk about Harden for 6 hours, apparently. Okay? We literally went game by game. But, I mean, does anybody have any major points they want to bring up from here on out?
The second you start talking, me and Z take the biggest gulp of water. I looked down. I was like,
you guys, bro, I heard your throats were getting raspy, bro.
Dog.
Pause. So I needed to make sure that, yeah. I have a bunch of mental notes I've kept. And you guys kept going, and I should have written some stuff down because I want to go through some pros and cons of things you guys said. The more recent one being to what Hoop just said, where it's why do we show James Harden, why do we focus on James Harden's bad games with other superstars?
He averages 30 points a game, and there's something like that in the postseason.
Because other superstars that we're comparing him to right now, for example, Curry, win at the end of the game. Or a win, a ring, or they do something. For example, Kevin Durant at the beginning of the season, I'm an Oklahoma fan. I know he's had his woes. He's proved himself and his doubters wrong, especially in his especially in his Warriors years, his Nets years, whatever. I'm not gonna debate either of you because I don't want this episode to go for 3 hours. We can debate forever. Honestly, getting from that argument, one thing, Hoop, I noticed you loved the AI comparison.
Well, because when we're talking historical.
Right,
but I can't say someone's an outlier when other people match them.
Well, you have to remember the reason that James Harden gets a lot more eyes on him is because it's happening right now. Nobody's going to mention Allen Iverson because it happened 20 years ago, right? 20 plus years ago. We're talking about a player right now, or at least these last few years, he's still playing. That's why I feel like that narrative is a lot stronger on him. But when he retires, and give him a few years after he retires, and then when we start talking about all time, I think that's when you can bring up the point where it's well, why does Allen Iverson not get the same amount of hate? Well, Allen Iverson didn't just play a playoff game. He played it 20 years ago, 25 years ago, right? So I think that point of Allen Iverson, I did not like only because.
Well, are we saying it because he, despite the narrative on him, like Allen Iverson, when you look back, they just think 2001 he took a game off Shaq and Kobe. Like, why are we saying if he is a playoff choker, he should be labeled as a playoff choker by people who know basketball? I don't want to care about what the public think. I don't think the public view on a player should determine what they actually are. If Allen Iverson was a playoff choker, he's a playoff choker. If Dirk Nowitzki is a playoff choker and he got a ring because someone else on the other team choked, that's what he should be viewed as by people who know basketball.
You used a lot of only Allen Iverson to compare to James Harden
because he didn't want to hear the Dirk Nowitzki. He didn't want to hear it. He said he's 7 feet tall and plays in the post. I had other examples. I brought up Kevin Durant. I brought up Dwayne Wade.
That example, it gets neglected because Kevin Durant in his later years proved that
when he got help. What happened against Boston? What happened against Boston?
In Brooklyn, he didn't have help. In Brooklyn, he didn't have help. Kyrie and James Harden were out. Kyrie and James Harden were out.
Kevin Durant had one of the greatest Game 7s of all time.
And not even just Game 7. That series. Don't say Game 7. That series in general, Z. Kevin Durant was going stupid.
Right, he was.
Kevin Durant was going dummy.
Even in
I'm not arguing either of you. I'm just bringing up what I'm hearing.
All I'm saying is James Harden was about to have that moment in Brooklyn. And he didn't because he got hurt earlier on in his career, just like James Harden early on in his career. There's these patterns. Even Kevin Durant's much better than James Harden. He still has those patterns of falling short because it's a mold of a player that is destined to be less efficient in the playoffs because, again, I brought up the points a million times, but there's players who have this same prototype who do not get the same hate or did not get the same hate as James Harden does. Simply because I agree, James Harden's more dramatic. Obviously, the stripper stuff, that doesn't help. But when you look at it from a basketball perspective and you ignore the post-game press conferences, you ignore how big he looks on TV, I think that James Harden is following the same trajectory as the rest of these players, maybe even a better one, because Allen Iverson never turned efficient.
So Allen Iverson, when I'm looking at his numbers right now, we talk about, I don't like the Allen Iverson anymore because we talked about how Allen Iverson was inefficient in the years that he won the scoring title. And when I look at his career averages, he averages 27 a game on 43% shooting from the field. That's just me rounding.
We're talking the playoffs?
No. I'm talking about Allen Iverson's regular season career.
So why are we talking about the regular season?
No, we don't
compare it to the playoffs.
It's a similar drop off to Harden.
So I'm hold on now. Y'all gotta let me talk. 43% in the regular season, 31% in the from three in the regular season. In the playoffs, though, he averages 20 to 30 points per game on 40% from the field and 33% shooting from three. So he kind of rises up a point.
How many 3-pointers has he taken? I don't like the 3-pointers. You can't.
He's averaging 5 attempts per game in the playoffs and then 4 attempts per game in the regular season.
No, but I'm saying talking about his 3-point percentage raising compared to Harden when Harden's much more volume. I want to look at
no.
Because James Harden's a 2-point shot shooter.
I'm just saying that when we're looking at Allen Iverson,
I think you meant Allen Iverson is a 2-point shot.
Yeah, Allen Iverson's a 2-point shot shooter. Yep.
So for James Harden, for the amount of, mind you, in 2018, I found this stat right before the show started. In 2018, James Harden had it was the record for the most amount of missed 3-point attempts in a series. He tied that. And you want to know who he tied it with? Steph from 2016. Steph's worst finals performance of his entire career. So James Harden did that in a series that we look at and we're like, hey,
what's the similarity of those two players on their respective teams?
To Steph and Harden?
Yes.
The similarity is chucking up threes and having a shooting slump and trying to shoot through it. That's the similarity.
Being the offensive motor on your team when you are the only one creating shots.
So for James Harden to have so many records,
because he has nowhere to hide. You're not hiding behind Chandler Parsons. You're not hiding behind Jeremy Lin. You're not hiding behind Dwight Howard.
And Jeremy Lin for a year or two. We're done with that. We get that.
He's not hiding behind Eric Gordon. I said 2013 through 2017. Those are a lot of the years of which we're talking about. He had no one to hide behind.
All right.
Chris Paul was gone. He had no one to hide behind then.
So what about when he made it all the way to the Western Conference Finals?
We ignore him actually making it to the Western Conference Finals. We ignore him making it to the Western Conference Finals. We talk about when he loses. We can do about that AI every year. We can do that with all the players I named. We can do that with all the players I named.
So let me ask you this: Is it so Harden's inconsistencies? Where do you think that they really lie? Because he had a game in the conference finals in 2015, right before Game 5, where he had 35 plus points in that game, shooting efficiently, and then the next game he shoots a 2 for 11 with 12 turnovers. How do we justify? Oh, because it was just one game. Did he go to the strip club a little too late? What do we say? Is it because in that game 4, how do you can't give me 20? You can't give me 22.
He had a bad game, and there's no one to hide behind. Very similar to these other players I named who have awful shooting performance, shooting like 10 for 31. He has no one to hide behind.
So
instead of keeping through shooting through that game like Allen Iverson did, James Harden's also a playmaker, so he tries to pass. He's trying to win the game. He's not just trying to shot chuck, even though he doesn't have a shot. That's why 2 for 11 looks so awful, because he's actually trying to make other plays happen, except for that one San Antonio game. I agree, he quit. Mm-hmm. But these other games, he has nowhere to hide without help.
Once again,
all right, listen. You guys are going back and forth. Wait, hold up. You guys
and then he dropped 35 in the game 7.
All right.
On 25, whatever.
Because the Rockets cannot shoot.
To mute you both.
They could shoot when they was coming back from 17 down. They could shoot when they was looking at James Harden and dapping him. Hey, James, you see that, bro?
I'm going to mute you both in 5 seconds. I'm going to mute you both
shame.
in 5 seconds. All right? You guys are arguing the exact same thing back and forth. We're not making any progression here. So I think this is a good time to kind of settle down and end this episode off, because I thought there was another major point coming. We just keep bringing up the same points, and you guys are going back and forth. I love it. There's no solidified answer. So I'm just going to go through some pros and cons of what both of you have said.
Can we also have like a minute each to just explain to are we just ending it here and then you decide?
No, we're not gonna end it. We're not gonna end it. We're gonna talk for. We're gonna end it in about like 5 minutes. Okay, let's just go through pros and cons. And if I give you guys a minute, you're gonna go for 50 minutes because someone's gonna chime in.
No, just give him like three points. Give him 3 points each. Come on, we gotta at least summarize the argument. For the viewers.
Okay, sure, summarize. But I swear to God, if you guys start yelling at each other again, I'm going to mute you both, because I've been trying to calm this down for the past 10 minutes. But I love it. I'm not hating it.
Oh, I got it.
Okay. Okay. So when I give you guys the opportunity to make the point, everybody wants to go quiet.
I was letting. All right, I'll go
first. Last time.
So obviously, my point is the unpopular one. If you're listening, I just want to let you know that there is 2 sides to this question. That's the reason I'm arguing it, because you don't have to believe it, but there is a valid point that James Harden is not this historic playoff choker that everyone likes to make him seem. People make it seem that he's the biggest fall-off playoff player in NBA history. Meanwhile, there's these other guys who were in similar situations to him that have had very similar performances. They're just not as blown up because obviously a lot of those games he's playing against the Warriors, nationally televised, a lot of people watching. But in reality, once again, Allen Iverson, Dwayne Wade, Dirk Nowitzki, Kevin Durant, before when he was in OKC, there's a lot of guys who have had very poor performances because of the burden on their shoulders, and the way that translates to the playoffs is very poor. And I don't think James Harden should be held to the same standard in the regular season simply because of the way he plays. If he was this all-time great, then we can expect it, but he's not an all-time great. He's a top 75 player all time. But we should not hold James Harden to the standard that he's going to be a world beater and beat the Golden State Warriors by the strength of him and Patrick Beverley. The only other points that I'd really like to drive home is that when he actually had help, he played very well in Brooklyn until he got hurt. Very unfortunate. Maybe he can make a comeback this year and play with Joel Embiid. I don't know how much I trust that because he's playing with Doc Rivers, but you get the point. He played very well when he actually had help and was healthy at the peak of his powers. And I think those disappearing acts are simply products of the system around him and a poor game that he had. He definitely had a poor game, but he just has nowhere to hide compared to these other superstars who can have a disappearing act like Steph Curry in Boston, and the team carries him. This was after the Game 4. I believe it was Game 5. He shot very poorly. The team did well. Harden doesn't have that luxury, so it just looks that much more eye-popping, and I think there's other players in NBA history that make his choking resume more relatable. And he's not this historic playoff choker, not a playoff riser, but he's not a historic playoff choker.
So I like Hoop's points. I really do. Mine are very simple. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. There were a lot of times, not only in my life, but I know in a lot of other fans' lives, media analysts, coaches, teammates of James Harden, where they walked into a game and they said to themselves, I need you to do me the biggest favor you've done me all season. And that is play as well as you have when you first saw this team back in October or November. I need you to just dominate. I need you to show me what we were raving about in the regular season. I need you to show me why the league handed you the league MVP. I need you to show the world why we are calling you not only an MVP caliber player, but one of the best players in the game because of how great you score the ball. In the playoffs, James Harden has notoriously been known to, here's the thing, fall off. If Hoop has a problem with me saying choke, I get that, because choke is it can be used loosely sometimes. For me, however, when I look at James Harden and the amount of shots that he misses and the amount of turnovers he has and makes for his team, and has done so since he first dropped down by himself with a lone team since 2013, bro has consistently had series where he has shown up nowhere. He has completely disappeared. As a matter of fact, the fact that one of Hoop's points back in 2017, when he was talking about the 2017 playoffs, was that he gave up on his team. Like, bro, he said that. Don't let that go over your head. He gave up on his team. The team that he had led up into that point as the leader, the line leader, the head honcho. He quit on his team. Crazy, right? Crazy. So I understand Hoop saying that if you're looking at him like a superstar and things of this nature, and he's not held as an all-time great, at least within that regard, that's fine. The only reason, in my opinion, that he isn't held in that regard is his own playoff struggles. To the point where, I remind you, there was a moment in time where James Harden shot 5 of 20 in an NBA game. His team was down 17 points, and he played so damn bad that the coach had to look at its star player, the guy that's getting the most amount of money on the team, and say, no, stop it. Stop.
We've heard this point.
We have, but I just, that's the, you
Dirk
don't need to hear nothing after
Nowitzki,
that.
Dirk Nowitzki, Allen Iverson, all had
not.
regular season MVPs.
Absolutely not.
Those guys all had regular season MVPs, just like Harden.
Yeah, Dirk overcame his playoff woes just like, oh wait, he didn't.
No, he did not. That was a team accomplishment.
Okay,
that was
so
a team accomplishment.
Who was at the forefront of that team in 2011?
It was Dirk Nowitzki.
Just
like James Harden was at the.
How many game winners does James Harden have in the playoffs compared to Dirk?
What are we talking? What are game winners? You can win the game before the buzzer.
Double. You can also put up 5-5.
Dirk Nowitzki shot 41% in the finals
against the 2020.
Jason Terry was the leading scorer in the closeout game with 27 points.
You can also put up 4 for 15 shooting against the Oklahoma City team, against a player that you let go. It's just wild. There's so many lowlights in James Harden's playoff career. That's insane. That's just insane.
Enough.
Fine.
No more talking. No more James Harden talk from both of you.
The only reason you don't know the AI lowlights is because they're in 720 HP.
It's done. I'm gonna say what I have to say, and we're done. Number one. I can't even remember what I want to say now because you guys have been going at each other. I'm just going to say this. Hoop, your point on every few years the Rockets play the team that go to the finals. Other than the team that goes to the finals, there are 7 teams in each conference. At least 3 of them play the team that go to the finals. So you basically have like a 45% chance of playing the team that goes to the finals every year. That's not a big whoop. Z, you have made the same point like 18 times, and I love it. But at the same time, is there another point towards this? I know, Hoop, you bring up the fact that a lot of other superstars are also choking the same way James Harden's choking. Well, maybe those superstars just aren't getting enough attention, and they're also historic playoff chokers. We can even look at it from that sense. Allen Iverson is terrible in the playoffs.
They can't be historic if they're all both playoff chokers. This is supposed to be an outlier.
And there's a lot of players who play great in the playoffs. You're outliers. You have named 3 of them, and one of them, Dwayne Wade, I wouldn't consider to be a playoff choker at the level that you're making him out to be.
I was saying a young Dwayne Wade. That was an example. I didn't call him
a young Dwayne
Wade.
Even then, a young Dwayne Wade wasn't as terrible as
he
you're
won a
making him,
championship
especially in 2006 and 2006. He was insane. In 2006,
with help, with Shaquille O'Neal.
With help, he was the best.
They ran the offense through Shaq. They ran the offense through Shaq.
Dwayne Wade averaging 35-plus points per game in the finals and one of the greatest finals performances anybody's ever seen in your damn life. You gonna sit here and tell me Shaquille O'Neal was what? What do you mean? What do you mean? He averaged 35-plus points per game.
He had 5 games. He had 5 games in that playoff series where he shot under 40%.
Beautiful. He walked away with the Finals MVP for a damn reason. Shaquille O'Neal was averaging under 15 points a game. What do you mean? Come on. Stop playing. Shaq was, when they said Shaq is back, everybody was like, oh my God. And then they got to the finals and it was like, okay, Shaq was there. Cool. Okay. Got outplayed by German Jesus. Like, nobody cares, bro. What do you mean?
I am going to say this, okay? I don't even know who wins anymore because you guys have just been screaming at each other and my ears hurt from sitting here for an hour and 10, 15. Both of you made great points. I will say this. Hoop has definitely made the case for James Harden to not be as big of a choker as those in the media make him out to be. But there were also a lot of points that I don't agree with on Hoop's side. Z came up with a lot of great points, but these are points that are just known to the public. Hoop really did his research. Hoop really dug deep. Z was more of a stat guy, and I respect it because, that's a big part of the game. I'm not hating on it. Hoop focused a lot more on James Harden's positioning on the team in terms of who we had around him, how the offense was going to be run.
Omer Ashik.
I will say this, Hoop, your idea that James Harden didn't have anybody to hide behind. I mean, when Chris Paul was healthy and they had that crazy shooting team around them, he still had his woes. I love Z's 27 missed straight threes because I think when people name James Harden as a historic playoff choker, the difference between James Harden and other stars is that James Harden is put into a position where he can clearly win the game, and it's his mistakes that cost them the game. Now, I understand that there's nobody else on the team to go and try and win the game for them 100%, but when you're the max contract player, when you're the guy who is making the big bucks, you're supposed to be the guy who's pulling through in the
just
big
like
moments.
they should be hitting free
I'll
throws
give
in the
Z that
2006
side in
NBA
terms of
Finals.
there have been a lot of... Wait, you said something, what?
Just like they should be hitting their free throws in the finals. Cough, cough, Dirk. When you're making that kind of money.
Fair.
Okay.
Fair. That's why they were on his ass for 4 years after that. And then he started making his money. He started doing his thing.
Okay. I'm just going to say, if I were to lean towards a side, both of you guys were good. I'd have to lean towards Z's side, to be honest, because there were a lot of moments where James Harden just didn't want to show up. I do agree with Hoop, though, that his injury in Brooklyn, if that doesn't happen, the narrative on James Harden is completely different because there's a ring on his finger and there's a lot that you can't say about him anymore. Because if you look at James Harden in that Celtics series, for example, that man was arguably on the same level in terms of production as Kevin Durant. Like, he was turning up. He was really crucial for that Nets team. Granted, it was a Celtics team that was the 8th seed, and they had a lot of problems with them. They were terrible. But, I'm not going to knock him on the team he played, whatever. I'm going to side towards Z on this one. I'm not going to lie. I think James Harden has just had too many
Is this
woes.
based on your prior knowledge of James Harden, or is it based on the argument?
My previous knowledge on, like, when I really dug deep into
You
James
said
Harden,
before the episode you were going to act like you didn't know who James Harden was.
Exactly, and this is based on both. I've done
Alright.
research. I've came to a consensus that I don't think he's. I agree with you in the term that he's not. I want to call him historic. But in this
So
term, in
you
this
side
argument,
with me.
no,
Because
but in
he
this
said he's a historic playoff choker.
I said I'm going to judge it based on who I have no idea who James Harden is, and Z was more convincing on his points. I did my own research,
You were
and I went and
comparing
did
him
my
to
own
other
thing.
players. I was just saying what James Harden
Because
did.
he's not
No,
historic.
it wasn't even just comparing him to other players. Who 99% of the time comparing him to Allen Iverson.
He is a playoff choker, like those other guys. He is not a historic playoff choker. He is not an outlier. He is just like those other high usage guys.
I like the point. I'm gonna be honest with you. Listen, I like the point that Hoop was getting at in terms of the fact that Hoop actually went back and put him in a class of guys is fair, because that just makes the argument a little bit more subjective depending on if you watch Dirk or if you watch D Wade back in the early 2000s or if you watch Allen Iverson or not. But for me, when I'm looking at James Harden compared to guys that are in my generation, he's historically been known to choke in the playoffs. And since 2013, you can point to a lot of games and a lot of series and a lot of game 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, and 7s where he's been just inconsistent. I think
with
that James Harden
with
still
comparing
has an
him to other
opportunity.
players of his era, there are not many superstars in an era. The ones that are in his era, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, are much higher than him in terms of skill. The other guys are lower than him, like Damian Lillard, who has also choked against the Warriors.
Right. Damian.
There's no one to compare James Harden to.
When you look at Dame's playoff numbers, it's another thing too. I have noticed that
He's
some
in a
people do
similar
not-
boat.
Right.
It's
Dame, but Dame gets the benefit of the doubt because of how many playoff buzzer beaters he's hit, right? But when you look at the box score, when you look at the numbers, I've said it on videos before. Damian Lillard is not as great of a playoff performer as people make him out to be. The only reason that people get sidetracked is because they think back to that 55-point game against the Nuggets, and they think back to the 2014 game against the Rockets, and they think back.
Stop bringing up Damian Lillard. Stop bringing up Lillard moments. We know where this is headed.
That 55 piece was the greatest game I've ever seen.
It was the greatest playoff game.
That was the greatest playoff game
That
I've
was
ever
the
seen in
greatest
my life.
amount of shooting I've seen in a playoff game.
That 55th point shot was the greatest shot in Damian Lillard's career.
Yeah.
We can agree on that. Yeah, for sure. But let's okay, listen. Both from a perspective of a person, if I'm pretending I didn't know who James Harden was, I would lean towards Z side, but I have done my own research. I've looked at the film. My consensus is that I agree with Hoop. I try to instigate Hoop a lot by pretending that I was going at him or bringing up stats.
The
because
Thunder misquote was awful from my part. That was an awful mistake.
It's okay. Z's side was a lot easier to defend than Hoop's, and I really wanted to test Hoop's knowledge in terms of how far he went with his research, which is why, if you notice in the episode, I asked Hoop a lot of questions. I knew that going in because Hoop has made it clear to us in the last week.
That's why I kept questioning you. I was like, yo,
yeah.
Sadie, you're the moderator.
Yeah, because I needed to make pressure burst pipes, all right? So I need to make sure that you knew what you were talking about. And granted, you did have a lot of great points, and you did back up a lot of your claims. Your mistakes were very minimal, like the Thunder one. That's not really that crazy of a mistake. But, for example, your point that the Rockets played the team that goes to the finals most of the years that they played, 3 of 7 teams in the playoff bracket play the teams that go to the finals.
Also win the finals, too. Like, you're talking about the Warriors here.
Okay, sure.
And
you're right.
Lakers,
you know what?
And the Lakers, who were on a clear track.
Right. If you want to switch
your
your point now,
dominant teams.
So we're switching the point from plays that go to the finals to teams that were winning the finals. Sure. Warriors, Lakers. I think those are the only 2, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. Warriors twice. But they lost the finals one.
And if you want to count Milwaukee,
fair.
He didn't play Milwaukee.
Here's my thing.
Yeah, I don't count his Milwaukee series towards his because he was injured. That's not
fair. That's
if you want to bring up Harden's choking.
Yeah, that's fair.
And you bring up Milwaukee, that is a terrible point. I'll be honest.
I will say this.
We're gonna end
James
this episode.
Harden. Can I say one more thing? This is my last thing.
Sure.
It's not gonna be that long. I just want to say this. Do I think James Harden is historically a playoff choker? Yes. Does Hoop? No. Does Saney? I don't think so.
No, I don't.
But here's my thing. That doesn't mean that it's like set in stone for the remainder of his career that it'll be this way, because we've seen stretches where it hasn't necessarily been his play. It's been more of him having the unfortunate circumstance of being hurt or something like that, right? James Harden still has a lot of time. He's 32, if I'm not mistaken, or 33. So he's still got a few more years left, a few more playoff runs left to change a lot of people's minds. And I feel like if he can get just one playoff run where, he's got Joel Embiid, he's got a great second option, a phenomenal second option, and a phenomenal team. He has a shaky coach, but that's neither here nor there. He just has, if he has one of those runs, it can erase a lot of that for me, because I can be able to say, hopefully, that he's healthy, that he's clear of mind, that he's in shape, that all of these things for him to just go out there and at least win a ring.
We're going to end the episode because this has been very long. Moral of the story, my consensus, it was very hard for Z to change my opinion because I agreed with Hoop before heading into this episode. I agree that James Harden is as bad as people seem. I know in this episode I made it seem like that. I really just wanted to push Hoop's buttons because that's what makes a good episode. We heard some yelling. You're welcome. But if I'm speaking in terms of the debate alone and I don't have an opinion, I am going to side with Z. But I'm going to agree with the point that James Harden is not a playoff joker. If you guys get my gist. It was impossible for you to convince me otherwise heading into it because I have my own opinion. But that's why I wanted to do it very like I have no opinion.
Valid.
But thank you for listening to this. We do have another argument coming, and it's about the Canadian legend, Steve Nash. Would he be an all-star in this era?
Heck yeah.
I will be mediating that. I cannot wait.
We'll see if that episode, because I don't think that episode would be as heated as this episode was, because I'm not as passionate about that take, because I said that on the fly. But
Oh, so he's trying to backtrack this now. Man, I just kind of said it. I don't really believe it. I just kind of said it.
No.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for listening. Everybody have a great day. And if you listen to this whole episode, we get our merch at the end of this week. So expect that to drop soon. Everybody have a good night.